your MC for the evening, Mr. David Lile.
Thank you, Chris. I've never had an introduction off stage like that before. That's a really great way to start this. Good evening and welcome again. We're glad that you are here. It's great to be here after missing this event a year ago. So we've got some catching up to do tonight, and so we're going to have 6 presentations into the History Makers Hall of Fame. So I think it's going to be an exciting night, and we're going to get pretty quickly to starting to recognize those honorees. Just a couple of housekeeping business things to do right now. The silent auction is ongoing, 8:25 when that ends. I think when you signed up or registered, perhaps you got a personal link to the silent auction at that point in time. So at any time you want to through the evening, you can be making those bids on the silent auction. Another thing I need to tell you, turn your phones to vibrate so that you don't get a call from somebody and you have one of those embarrassing songs that you've accompanied with a certain person to. I don't want to hear I don't want to hear any disco or anything tonight while we're doing this. So those 2 things taken care of. If you haven't already also discovered where the restrooms are, they're back through that door, and there are signs, so you can go that direction also. I'm going to go off script twice tonight, and the first time is to say that I was in a discussion a few weeks ago that the discussion was, why do people choose to settle down here and to live here in Columbia and in Boone County? I was thinking about that tonight because I look around and I see so many people that I admire and have great respect for, and I think the reason that many of us have decided to live here is because of who you are and what you bring to the town and to the county, and so that's why a lot of us have stayed here, and especially because of those who are here to represent the businesses that are going into this Hall of Fame and also the individuals, and we will get to those in just a moment. There are 2 goals for this evening. One is to honor those in our community who are deserving to be in Boone County's Hall of Fame, recognize them for the contributions they have made. And number 2 is, at the same time, provide financial support for the Boone County Historical Society and its endowment trust. And my second off script is to say, actually, there are 3 reasons to be here tonight. And this table right over here has a couple, Tim, and I think, is it Cheryl? 5-year wedding anniversary tonight there. And also at that table is my wife, and we celebrate our anniversary tomorrow, so I am taking her out to the best event in the city tonight for our anniversary. So hopefully scoring some really big points. I want to introduce the History Makers Gala chairperson and the executive director of the organization that hosts this. And so if they would come up for their comments right now. Ladies and gentlemen, please, a good round of applause, if we could, for our chairperson of this event, and that is Michelle Baumstark, and also the head of the executive director of the Historical Society, and that is Chris Campbell, please.
Thank you, David. I'm a lot shorter than David, sorry, even with heels. So good evening, and welcome to Boone County Historical Society History Makers Hall of Fame Gala. I'm Michelle Baumstark, and I'm the chair of the Endowment Trust, and I'm also the event chair of the Gala Committee. And it's really wonderful to see everyone this evening and to finally have an opportunity to recognize our enshrinees at a public event. And I'd like to thank our 2020 honorees and their families for being so patient and flexible over the last year, and for being here this evening so that we may honor you with the appropriate fanfare and celebration. So thank you. We do have a very special evening planned, and we look forward to celebrating both our 2020 and our 2021 honorees for our Hall of Fame tonight. So I want to start by thanking our sponsors for their support, our gold sponsors, the City of Columbia and Veterans United, our silver sponsors, Boone Electric Cooperative and Bruce and Betsy Odell, our bronze sponsors, Shelter Insurance Foundation and True Media. And I also invite you to please take a moment to look in your program at the list of our amazing underwriters and donors who help make this evening possible. In addition to recognizing the contributions of tonight's honorees have made to Boone County, we're also here to support the Boone County Historical Society's Endowment Trust, which I chair, and the Boone County Historical Society, which both exist to provide an investment and resources necessary to preserve the rich history and culture of our community. And because I have said this for the last 6 years, that this is my final year, but the last 6 years that I have chaired this event, I know that everyone here loves this community. And I know that you are here tonight because you also want to preserve the rich culture of this community. And I'm so glad that you are all here this evening. So before we get to the heart of the evening, I want to take a moment to recognize the Endowment Board. So would members of the Endowment Board please stand? And I see some of you, and I will know if you didn't stand. Thank you. I also would like to point out members of the Boone County Historical Society Board, which is led by Karen Miller, that are also here this evening. So if you would please stand and be recognized. Finally, I would like to thank the Hall of Fame Planning Committee, who have spent the last 16 months planning and replanning for tonight's celebration. So thank you for your hard work, your diligence, and a monumental effort to make this all happen. So would members of the committee please stand and be recognized? And I'd also like to extend a special thank you to the Boone County Historical Society's staff and Annabelle Events for making sure that we stayed on track tonight and that it goes off without a hitch. It really does take an entire team to make something like this happen. So we have a great, thank you, yes. We have an absolutely great night ahead of us. We have amazing enshrinees, and I'm excited for you all to learn about. So thank you so much for being here, and I'd like to invite Chris Campbell, our Executive Director of the Boone County Historical Society here. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Thank you and good evening. Welcome back. It's been too long. A few brief things. First of all, I want to shout out and thank Hawthorne Bank, who's responsible for the complimentary magazines under your plates. In light of the fact that we had to cancel last year's event, with very short notice, we decided we wanted to do something to honor the enshrinees and everybody who was in the Hall of Fame. That was up to 70 people last year. So that thin magazine in front of you is a gift to take home. If you've ever wondered who the heck is in the Hall of Fame, that magazine is going to tell you everything. I also want to thank David James, who makes those terrific playing cards that you see at shops throughout the community. That deck of cards is also a party favorite. Hope you all take those home too. Thank you, David. I also want to kind of go off script here and do something I don't normally do at the podium each year, because we have dozens and even hundreds and hundreds of supporters and friends that make what we do possible out at the Boone County History and Culture Center. But something extraordinary happened last week, and I think it deserves praise. We received a phenomenal gift from a dear friend who's been supporting us for a few decades now. And I just want to publicly recognize and thank you, David Knight, for your gift to the Society last week. David, your gift is going to be impactful for a very, very long time. Now, I won't be gauche and go into the specifics of the gift or how or why. I'll just say this. For the rest of you that have something each year called an RMD, I have 4 words for you that David knows. Boone County Historical Society. I'll leave it at that. Thank you again, David. I also want to just recognize the fact that we've got a full house tonight. We didn't know if we could do that 8 weeks ago. We were very uncertain about how or whether we should put 31 tables of 10 in this room. We decided to do it. We thought we could do it safely. But because we have 6 honorees, which is twice as many as normal, and an unusual number of sponsors, which we're incredibly thankful for, and tables reserved just for families of nominees, it meant that a lot of truly good friends like David Knight and many others, are in what you might call the last 2 rows. So if you're in the last two rows tonight and you've been extraordinarily supportive of us for a number of years and you're sitting there going, gosh darn it, Chris, why the heck am I in the back row? Just be thankful you're in the room. We're thankful you're here. I ask for your compassion and your understanding. We had a lot of people to put down front. You're no less important. Every single person in this room is a VIP. Just be glad you're close to the bar. And the last thing I want to say before I step away is to encourage you to be generous with your warmth, your appreciation, and your applause when you see and hear each one of these 6 individuals and companies recognized tonight. I've noticed in the last year that Columbia has again made a couple of top 10, top 50, top 100 lists in the country. And I know how much everybody here appreciates what this town offers that's so rare and hard to find. But here's the thing I thought it'd be worth saying tonight. Columbia isn't what it is, nor has it ever been what it was, without people making it so. People. People. You can go back to James Rollins. You can go as recent as Wine of Faye Tap Elbert. People make it happen. We are extremely proud to be the only civic and community-minded Hall of Fame in this community. We take it very seriously. And I would just ask all of you, when you're really enjoying Columbia, know that people make it happen. People who were with us and aren't anymore, and people who are still among us, and some of you, many of you who are going to be in this Hall of Fame someday, it's because of you. So let's be thankful to our friends, and again, have a wonderful, wonderful night. Thank you very much.
Chris and Michelle, thank you. Well, let's get to it. Let's start to recognize those who are entering the Hall of Fame. I want to recognize the Meyer table right here and also there because they are for the family of our first honoree. It gives me great pleasure to introduce you by way of this video, Sabra Toll Meyer. We'll take 2 on this in just a moment. This is a great time to do your silent auction bidding. Also to get your credit card out and your checkbook or your cash for what's to come a little bit later. I think while we're waiting, I'm curious because my notes say that the family has come from all over the country. Shout out where you're from. South Dakota. I love that state. Yeah. Where else? Bellevue, Washington. Huh. My daughter's in Pullman tonight. Where else? St. Louis. Oh, that's okay. You had to. How was the traffic on I-70 tonight? At least you came from the east and not from the west, because we've had some difficulties over the last week with the travel on the, especially westbound I-70 at Sorrells Overpass. Anywhere else? Washington, Missouri, out east also. Very neat. Well, welcome all of you. We should jump to some of our auction stuff. I don't think Sarah's ready to do that yet, though she's still eating. I don't want to get started on that and then be ready to go here. We really want to kind of go in order. Good opportunity for you to finish your meal also. Ask for seconds. I think I have a plate over there that's not going to be used. We can auction that off to the highest bidder. I work in radio, and dead air is like one of those things you really panic when that happens. Can't go to commercial. I wish I could put a song on. Say what? I could, yeah, we sometimes could do that or do. Of course,
citizen
our station's News Talk, and we're not licensed to play music, so. I know there are a lot of people out here who I could interview. What do you think? Oh, I hear sound.
Grace.
That's a good sign.
Beauty. Vibrant. Dynamic.
Ready? Our first Boone County of Hall of Fame enshrinee of the evening. Please again, let's be introduced by way of this video to Sabra Tull-Meyer.
Grace. Beauty. Vibrant. Dynamic. Words that appropriately describe not just that artist's creations, but the artist herself. Sabra Tull-Meyer creates treasures through her sculpture and is a local treasure. Her sculptures are extraordinary pieces that individually and collectively tell the stories of our community, our state, and even our nation.
I love the feel of the clay. At least I find it so. It's fun to play in clay. Being the age I am now, it makes a whole, well, it's different in every aspect of your outlook on life. You can't create if you're not alone. You have to spend time alone. My vision comes through building the core and then building out. I think of it as like a skeleton. Some faces seem to come together easier than others. I never know until I get started. At my age, I just figure whatever comes will come. So it's not the way I used to feel.
A Boone County native, Sabra grew up in Columbia at the corner of University Avenue and Hitch Street. She was a happy child that came of age when the town was still a relatively quiet little burg. Life was fun and simple.
It was a wonderful place to grow up. We could ride our bikes everywhere, and there were zoology buildings, and we could go in and out of those buildings. We looked at the stuffed exhibits of the animals. And when I was really little, we of course had a sandbox, like 4 or 5. And I can remember going out and playing in the sandbox and taking the hose and kind of wetting the sand down. And then I could make turtles and, simple shapes but I remember how satisfying that was.
The idea of being an artist was not new in the family. Both her mother and grandmother were artists, and Sabra enjoyed painting in oils and watercolor. Transitioning to sculpture would not come for many years. Sabra graduated from Hickman High School and the University of Missouri, but not before being named a homecoming queen at Mizzou. After graduation, Sabra married fellow Mizzou graduate Jim Meyer, and they raised 4 children, first in Kansas City and Dallas, and then eventually returning to Columbia in 1967. When the 3 oldest were in college and the youngest at Hickman High School, she found she had the time and desire to get her master's in fine art from Mizzou. She was in her 40s, and it was about this time when she began to pursue a lifelong curiosity with sculpture.
I look back on it, and frankly, I'm kind of amazed. So actually, I've had 2 lives. One as a wife and mother, and the second part of the second, almost half, has been involved with sculpture. About the late 80s, I had an opportunity to create a bust of someone in the theater department at Stevens College. I was so pleased. I thought, I really want to do more of this. So it just all kind of fell into place. It was just amazing.
The artist had found her niche and her passion, and the medium found a master in Sabra. Sabra was and is a prolific artist. Her pieces can be found all over Missouri. including the Hall of Famous Missourians in the state capitol, the Kansas City Chiefs Hall of Fame in Arrowhead Stadium, as well as on the campus of the University of Missouri in Booneville, Moberly, St. Louis, in the Missouri Supreme Court Building, and at Stevens College and the Columbia Public Library.
I only knew Saber from a distance, personally, but I knew her reputation as an artist. It preceded her. First, I have to admit my jealousy. That much talent in one person is just unbelievable, and all of us would like to be able to do that. Saber can. My favorite, the statues of Lewis and Clark, just outside the state capitol. That one is owned by the public, and it is superior. Sabra going into the Historical Society Hall of Fame is absolutely justified. That's where she ought to be.
In addition to many professional awards and affiliations, she was honored with the 2014 Missouri Arts Council Individual Artist Award. Her works with children or dance and movement are as admired as her busts of the famous and not so famous. Perhaps her most seen work is the majestic Corps of Discovery monument overlooking the Missouri River at the State Capitol building. The monument depicts William Clark, Meriwether Lewis, Clark's slave York, and the French-Canadian and Shawnee interpreter George Drouillard. The warmth, grace, beauty, and good cheer were always a part of her character, then and now. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome into the Boone County Hall of Fame, Sabra Tull Meyer.
Ladies and gentlemen, be seated and we'll hear a few words, please, from our honoree, Sabra Tull Meyer.
That's good. Oh, thank you. I can't tell you how honored I am to have received this award. My deepest thanks to the Boone County Historical Society and the committee and whoever else was involved in this decision. I am just honored beyond words. So I'm going to be brief, and I especially want to say hi to Dave Horner, the only person in the room who's older than I am. At 94, I have made 94 trips around the sun. That's a lot of mileage. So I am really thrilled to be here. And thank all of you for coming. I appreciate it so much. Now, with that, I will bid you adieu.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
That's the first of my chills that I expect to get today, because I just like seeing the stories of people who I've heard about and who I've just vaguely known at times, but to see what they are, see them honored is a terrific feeling, and it does give me the chills. And so I expect the next one to come from someone that we already had an introduction to. So we're going to, again, keep it right here in this area because our next honoree, which will be introduced to by the video, David Horner.
A citizen servant is said to be one who seeks to serve the welfare of others before their own. The ideal was born in historical Roman figure Cincinnatus, who led men into war to rescue a trapped army. He was victorious in having steered the nation state through the crisis in just a 16-day period. He resigned his post, declined the Senate's offer of a dictatorship, and returned to the fields of his small farm. David Horner is a modest man and would blush at the comparison, of course. This Boone County meteorologist, farmer, commissioner, and civic leader was not a war general. But in the simplest terms, the analogy is apt. David Horner has been a citizen servant for his entire life, and like the great general, he has always returned to his small farm, a farm he has actively managed for 73 years. David grew up in Steelville, Missouri, the youngest of 4 brothers. It was a happy childhood, and he met his future wife, Wynn, at the age of 5. David was at the University of Illinois in late 1942 when the Army Air Corps recruited him to the meteorology unit with the rank of second lieutenant, and so began a lifelong career in meteorology. During World War II, as a young officer and a recently trained meteorologist, he walked from his weather office at the Smoky Hill Army Airfield in Salina, Kansas, and into a giant hangar, climbed up on a stage, and started briefing an assemblage of more than 600 highly trained airmen, as well as a whole row of generals who had come from Washington. Those airmen were the crews of 60 B-29 Superfortress bombers that were departing the next morning to Karachi, India, where they would then depart to drop their munitions on the Japanese homeland. And earnest and unintimidated David was briefing them on their first leg, the flight to Newfoundland. He was 24 years old.
240 of those engines, and then one at a time, as you say, going out and groaning off that 10,000-foot runway. They used most of it because they were really loaded.
David left the Army Air Corps in 1946 and settled in the Boone County town of Huntsdale with his wife. In 1954, and when grades 1st through 8th were still taught by a single teacher in segregated one-room schoolhouses in rural Boone County, David and Wynn worked tirelessly to establish the Consolidated Rural District and the first integrated school west of the Mississippi, New Haven R2 Elementary. In 1954, he began a 27-year career at the National Weather Service. He retired in 1981 after years of supervising the 24/7 operation at the original Columbia Airport as the chief meteorologist, and then beginning in 1968 at the airport's current location south of Columbia. He received many commendations during these years, and in particular for his role in helping to save hundreds of lives in Sedalia, when his warnings about a coming tornado were utilized to get dozens of families to safety.
My function was to say, I think you've got this right. Go ahead and issue the warning. And the warning was timely. It saved a lot of lives.
Horner served several years on Boone County's Planning and Zoning Commission. Armed with that experience, he was then elected county commissioner in 1985. Horner helped steer the county through some major transitions. The jail, now 30 years old, was designed under his watch after he fought hard to get the bond issue passed to finance it. While commissioner, much of his effort was expended on the modernization of the Boone Hospital facilities. As the need to upgrade facilities to attract top doctors became obvious, he worked on the decision to lease the facilities and was involved in the selection of the hospital's new strategic partner. When he retired from the commission, Horner was asked to serve on the Boone Hospital Board of Trustees. There he worked to protect Boone County and the hospital. Seeing the need for future growth, he also sought to acquire land to expand the outpatient clinics. One of Horner's long-running commitments was as member of the Columbia Cemetery's Board of Directors for 43 years. Another notable service commitment was his work on the board and as board president of the local Planned Parenthood Health Center, a matter of both integrity and pride for the lifelong Republican.
People often start looking at Planned Parenthood and say there's a partisan aspect to that, and they link in their minds Planned Parenthood with Democrats. Mr. Horner is a lifelong Republican, and yet he sees the value to our community in supporting the work of Planned Parenthood, supporting the work of an organization that's dedicated to the health of women.
Born on June 19, 1921, David turned 100 years old recently. His children threw him a party with 100 guests, and David gave a very well-prepared 20-minute address in 90-degree heat. The citizen servant had a lot to say, and he was not going to be deterred. Much has been said about the state of our nation's civic affairs in our present times. We are led to believe that the nation does not produce the same selfless public servants in the way that we used to. David Horner is the exception. He is a shining example of a selfless public servant. It's fair to say that we need more David Horners in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome into the Boone County Hall of Fame, David Horner.
He is saying very nice, and that's him. And you know what? If you speak 20 or more minutes tonight, I'm not going to stop you. But you can say whatever you feel like saying right now. Congratulations on entering the Hall of Fame.
Well, I would certainly appreciate this award, and more so because I am acquainted with some of my predecessors, such as Sabra, and I have stood for at least an hour staring at the 5 figures in front of the state capitol and just marveling at anyone that could do that talent in that industry. And then the other person that I've always admired, a person that single-handedly destroyed the glass ceiling that kept so many women in the judicial, in the legal tradition from advancing. Blockbuster definitely was Ann Covington. Not only that she was appointed, but the work that she did when she had the office to which she was appointed. I have a little thought about Anne. So many judges wished to be present when she took her oath of office that the county commission had to lengthen the bench on which they sat. They couldn't be bothered with sitting in the first row. No, they had to sit at the bench. So Anne, you cost us money. And anyway, it was great. Oh, one of the interesting things that would be even nicer than being here and receiving this award, it would be if my wife was here, Winifred Bryan Horner. She was the better half of David and Winnie Horner partnership. There wasn't any doubt about the better half part, which I was instructed at a meeting in the friendly schoolhouse at Huntsdale, Missouri. You all know where Huntsdale is, but if you don't, it's a town down by the river and on the celebrated Katy Trail. It used to be, when we were first there, it used to be the MKT Railroad. Well, at this nice occasion, I was talking to a gentleman who owned land next to ours. We had moved to the farm directly from service in World War II. Talking to him, he spoke of having met my wife. And he said, ain't she a dandy? Which I could go along with that, certainly. And then he looked real thoughtful, and he looked at me, and he said, I just can't understand why she married you. Well, I swallowed that, and then I finally...
Legend has it that when Reuben Lucas came to the University of Missouri in Columbia as a pre-med student, he heard a beautiful woman's voice coming from an open window. But when he looked up,
the work I've done here in this county was 77 years of farming. My pride there is that the land is in better shape than it was when I first acquired it. And that isn't always easy to do. And then the next thing that came up for me was work at the Weather Service. I think it was about 27 or 8 years, which was very interesting. And we had one great success of a warning of a tornado at the city of Sedalia, which was extraordinary in what damage that it did, and that there were no one killed. So I got a medal for that, which is actually should have gone to a person working for me who was holding the phone, and on the other end of the phone line was the emergency manager at Sedalia. They were well organized, and his question to me was, shall I issue the warning? And I said, yes. So I got a medal. But it was kind of extraordinary. I was proud of what he had done. And then, of course, I was on the board of Planned Parenthood for 7 years, a very fine organization, which is controversial because of one very small part of its program. Well, I was trying to think. Probably the most rewarding might be public service. The county commission, the 8 years as trustee of Boone Hospital Center. And I think the relatively new to me CEO, Mr. Greer, may be here tonight because my son's airplane coming here canceled their flight, and he caught a ride with Mrs. Greer. So, is that right, Richard? Okay. So I just am grateful for this award, and I thank you.
David Horner. Welcome to the front, and she's not going to stay here long, I don't think. She's going to put the squeeze on some of you out there. This is a former math teacher, Sarah Lubbert, who is here to get us going with tonight's first of two funded needs. And I think that includes, it says here, office renovations. I'm not sure what that means. Sarah, good evening.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm the only thing that stands between you all and a few minutes of Doug Pugh's wisdom. So Bob is going to be up here in a moment, and I'm sure he's going to tell a lot of tales about his son as he does so when MBS is recognized. So what we're talking about tonight, I want to see some hands raised. How many of you have remodeled, refreshed, refurbished, repainted something in your house during this pandemic? Raise your hand. Yeah. Well, what we have out here at the Boone Historical and Culture Center is a 1,200 square foot, 1,500 square foot, 1993 Decord. Ooh, 1993, imagine it, office space. And it's in need of some renovations. We want a professional space for our staff to work. So we're looking for a fund to need for a very particular need tonight. So as your ambassador of fun, I'm going to ask you all to find your paddles. which are your lovely magazines, and they wrote your number on the back when you checked in. And we're going to do 3 levels. And I've got a little surprise for those of you volunteering for the first level, which is going to be $1,000. So raise your paddles if you're willing to give $1,000 to that fund a need. We're going to call the numbers out real fast and get going. So raise them in the air. I'm going to start from one side and go to the other. 134. Thank you so much. 134. Who else do I have? 343. Thank you, Karen Miller. 343. 314. Robin Winokur. 314. Appreciate it. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what those who donate $1,000 get. Up here, and David's going to play my Vanna. How's this for a role reversal? David is showing you an old box. This is a crate from a company out of St. Louis that held for many, many years all those glass digital plates. The glass plates that we've digitized in the Hank Waters III digital library. And you can see inside, pull out one of those little containers from the inside. That's some cool stuff. You can use it in your house. You can use it as some decor. You can donate it to another event. But anybody who's donating $1,000 is going to get to take home one of those boxes full of historical memorabilia from tonight. So with that, before I move on to $500, anybody else for $1,000 for the fund a need for the renovations to the office space? Okay, there we go, 213. See, those boxes are nice. Anyone else? 159. Thank you so much there in the back. 159.
Sarah, thank you. And
all righty, Dave, back to you.
Thank those of you who also made the gift for us. Sarah will be back in just a few moments. All right, it's time to honor our third honoree, and we're going to move to the businesses that are going to be recognized. So please turn your attention to the screens, and we will welcome to the Boone County Hall of Fame MBS Textbook Exchange.
Legend has it that when Reuben Lucas came to the University of Missouri in Columbia as a pre-med student, he heard a beautiful woman's voice coming from an open window. But when he looked up, was appalled to see new textbooks being thrown out the window simply because the semester had ended. He soon made 3 smart decisions. He married the voice, quit the study of medicine, and started reselling textbooks, creating one of the oldest and most successful businesses in Columbia. The Missouri Bookstore Company was formed on July 9, 1909. The business was located on the corner of 9th and Conley Streets and was a combination bookstore and coffee shop. It was a popular hangout for students from the very beginning. The store sold textbooks, but also desks, globes, and maps to schools across the state. Success was also due to Reuben's gift for promotion. When an improved ballpoint pen was introduced, he announced its arrival in Columbia by dropping it from an airplane over the Francis Quadrangle. In the 1930s, Reuben became the sole owner of the company. By 1941, there were 8 stores across the country. The end of World War II brought more success and expansion. By this time, the Missouri Store Company was one of the largest suppliers of used textbooks in the country. On Christmas Eve, 1947, Reuben was playing the piano for family when he suffered a massive stroke and passed away. The company he co-founded went to his daughter Rosemary and to his son Bud. Bud Lucas was elected president of the firm, and Reuben's son-in-law, Stanley Ginn, was named chairman. In the 1950s, the company experienced more growth with multiple stores opening across the nation. The Missouri Store Company had evolved into an operator of retail college bookstores. In 1973, a major shift occurred when the company opened University Book Services in an old A&P grocery store at 310 South 9th Street in Columbia, and returned to its roots in reselling used textbooks.
The owner of the company had purchased the A&P grocery store, which was a building across from the journalism school. So they gave me the green light, gave me a little money to build some plywood shelves, and I hired a couple, and we hired 5 students, and the 8 of us started MBS. We never looked back, and for the next 45 years, we never had a sales or earnings decline.
In 1977, University Book Services changed its name to Missouri Book Services, MBS, and moved its headquarters to a larger facility in Columbia on Paris Road. And in 1979, MBS became the first company in the industry to computerize its inventory.
Alan Leach, who's now retired, was the guy who did the orders. He'd take it on the phone, and he'd write it down and run off and look for the books for the customer's order. And 3 out of 4 times we didn't even have the book. So that was kind of a hunt and peck. That's what everybody did. So maybe we could do this on a computer. And we thought that was a good idea. And the thing cost about $145,000. And that was a lot of money back then. But now, Alan Leach, he didn't have to go running around the building looking for books we didn't have. All he had to do was sit there and key in the title, the author title, and they'd say, you got 6 of them. And he'd say, okay, sell them. We had an awful lot of fun.
By the early 1980s, the company is flourishing, and its name had changed to MBS Textbook Exchange. There are 2 entrepreneurial-minded vice presidents, Robert Pugh and Dan Chupan, who are largely running the company. Pugh is a former Columbia, Missouri mayor, and Chupan, son of the late general manager G.M. Chupan, is a former University of Missouri academic All-American football player.
Bob was a CPA accountant. We were both at the Missouri Store Company, and he worked in the home office, and I was down in the warehouse. For about 12 years, Bob and I knew each other real well. The opportunity came to change the ownership in the company. Bob switched sides. We recruited him to MBS, and the Missouri Store Company was sold off, and we became a wholesale company, MBS Textbook, after about 12 years.
In 1985, a group of investors led by Leonard Riggio, a principal of Barnes & Noble, and including Bob Pugh and Dan Chupan, signed an agreement to buy the company from R.E. Bud Lucas Jr., Bill Lucas, and Stanley Ginn. Pugh is named CEO and Chupan president. Soon, MBS becomes the primary wholesaler for Barnes & Noble college stores, prompting tremendous growth. In 1991, MBS moved to its current location on West Ash Street, where the expanding company enjoys 330,000 square feet. Consistent innovation, new technology, and improved efficiency became the norm over the next several years, resulting in the purchase of MBS Textbook Exchange in 2017 by Barnes & Noble Education. One of the company's most significant legacies and practices is how it treats its employees. The Elite Edition showcases the best of the workforce, and the company is proud to be the first American job for thousands of immigrants arriving in Columbia over all these years. Today, MBS employs team members from over 30 countries.
We want to foster an environment of advancement for our employees. It helps MBS, right? I mean, you do good by your employees, the company's going to do well. It's something that Bob Pugh and Dan Chupan fostered from the very beginning, but they're the ones who set the bar. I'm thankful that I've been part of it. I've been with the company now for over 27 years. I couldn't imagine MBS being based anywhere else. It's just a wonderful place to have a business.
MBS has a long history of community service and donates time and funding to charitable and philanthropic endeavors, including our local United Way and the Northeast Central Missouri Food Bank. Missouri grown, Missouri proud. This hometown company is a national leader. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome into the Boone County Hall of Fame, MBS Textbook Exchange.
Bob Pugh, congratulations to MBS Textbook Exchange.
You know, in today's climate of inclusion and diversity, I think it's appropriate to mention that MBS is probably the most diverse organization in town. They mentioned in the video over 30 nations are represented under that big blue building on West Ash Street. I chose to divide that the employees into three different groups: the refugees. These people come from Vietnam, all around the globe, to even to Bosnia and a lot of places in between. Their countries are gone to hell in a handbag quick. They came to the United States looking for opportunity and freedom. Somehow they ended up here in Columbia, Missouri. The important point is they did not wait across the Rio Grande. They came here the hard way, legally. Then the second group would be the immigrants. I call them immigrants, young people from mid-Missouri towns like Fayette, New Franklin, Avaz, Monroe City. Came to Columbia looking for an opportunity. They found that opportunity at MBS, and most of them bootstrapped themselves up to higher positions. The third group, we have to give credit to the indigenous people, the natives of Boone County and Columbia. Many of them started at entry-level positions. Some began at work at MBS as a summer temporary help. And by the way, MBS is has provided more summer jobs for college kids and high school students than any other company in Columbia. But that's the story I can tell you. And that all happened, interestingly, without a chief diversity officer. MBS never had such a thing. So tonight, you're honoring MBS, and that's just a company name. Really what you're doing is honoring all these people. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Stick a fork in me, I'm done.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Anybody have an over-under bet on how long he would speak? Who won? That was terrific. And I know there are at least 4 tables there that are supporting MBS Textbook Exchange, so thank you very much. Well, she's back up here. Let me see if I can, I want to say also Dan Chupan and David Henderson, thank you, and appreciate you being here and being honored also. So, Sarah, I've got a different introduction for you each time. Congratulations to Sarah Lubbert, the 2018 Athena Young Professional Award winner. Here's Sarah Lubbert.
So now we're going to do the traditional fund to need. So this is for the Hank Waters III Digital Imaging Lab, and I will tell you, volunteers have worked really hard. 12,000 glass plate negatives have been imaged. That's where we get these lovely boxes with all this historical stuff for you tonight. But that leaves about 500,000 to go.
All right, and I'll make my entrance there.
Did you see that?
Thank you. Let's move on then. Let's recognize our next honoree, and that is the company Shelter Insurance. Let's watch the video introducing us to Shelter Insurance's contribution to this community.
Ensuring what matters most. The phrase is so simple and yet so completely true for the homegrown Missouri company that is now in its 75th year. The decades have proven the company to be an exceptional example of practicing doing what's right every time and doing it for the customer. Shelter Insurance was originally MFA Mutual Insurance, a division of the Missouri Farmers Association, MFA, which began in 1914. In 1945, MFA decided to form an insurance company, and that became a reality on January 1st, 1946. MFA offered insurance protection for cars, homes, and farms. By the late 1950s, the operations were in a total of 13 states throughout the middle and southern United States. In the company's beginning years, it was based at 201 South 7th Street in Columbia. The building is now owned by the University of Missouri and named the Hinkle Building after the company's first president, Fred Hinkle. Success and rapid growth began almost immediately for the new, young, profit-sharing mutual company. A new state law encouraged the purchase of auto insurance. GIs were buying homes and cars for their families, and the company began banking surpluses as soon as its second year. In 1956, MFA Mutual outgrew their headquarters on 7th Street, and that fall, construction began on the building that remains Shelter's corporate headquarters today. In 1959, the company's offerings expanded significantly with the addition of a life insurance company. Their first 20 years of growth and success can be largely credited to CEO Jack Silvey and company president Fred Hinkle, but also to the hundreds of early agents in the field. They were the envy of the industry because MFA's leadership knew how to attract talent. Success, growth, and a continued push to innovate continued under the company presidents A.D. Sappington and Howard B. Lang. Sappington's leadership provided several significant beautification projects on the West Broadway property, and the first was the addition of the fountain in front of the building in 1966. In 2016, the beloved water feature was renovated and made even larger. The fountain is the location for 2 annual traditions, the fountain celebration in the spring and the holiday tree lighting. In 1974, a replica of the schoolhouse where the first meeting was held that led to the formation of MFA was built on the grounds. MFA Gardens was built around it in 1975. The fountains, the schoolhouse, and the gardens continue to be hugely popular. In 1981, MFA Insurance separated from the Missouri Farmers Association, and the company became Shelter Mutual Insurance Company. The company experienced continued growth through the 1980s under its new name and presidents, Gus Lair, Jack Pettit, and Bob Maupin. Recent company CEO and presidents Rick Means, Matt Moore, and current president CEO Randa Rollins have continued to pursue the traditional core values, integrity, financial stability, and excellent customer service.
All of our employees know that the main value we have in our company is always to do the right thing.
The Shelter Insurance group of companies now has more than 4,200 agents and employees providing insurance protection for consumers in 21 states. With more than $6 billion in assets under management, the company is terrifically positioned for continued success for years to come. The company's values drive its efforts to be the shelter from the storm for catastrophic events here in Missouri and around the nation. Shelter's history of supporting communities goes back to its early years, and it supports every community where a shelter agent can be found. But a significant part of why the company has earned a place in the Boone County Hall of Fame is its support of Columbia and Boone County.
The lifestyle that you can have being here, the entertainment, the educational opportunities that you have. So Columbia's been really good to us and supportive of Shelter throughout its 75-year history, and we're so thankful to those who made the decision that this be where the headquarters would originally be made.
The list of community programs is long and includes the Shelter Foundation's scholarship programs, which handed out over $1.2 million to students here and across the country in 2020. Shelter Cares offers shelter employees the opportunity to volunteer for local nonprofit groups, and their employee resource groups showcase various charities, including the American Heart Association, the Boys and Girls Club of Columbia, True North, City of Refuge, and the Food Bank for Central and Northeast Missouri.
So proud of the work that was done before us and the foresight that the people had who started this company, and we've been so blessed to grow in many different ways and to be supportive of our employees and our agents and our community, and just thankful that we've had a really successful 75 years and looking forward to the next 75 as well.
No better example of a successful, value-driven, customer-devoted, and community-supporting company can be found than Shelter Insurance, right here in Boone County. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome into the Boone County Hall of Fame, Shelter Insurance.
And please welcome Shelter Insurance President and CEO, Randa Rollins.
Thank you. Well, as I was sitting there thinking, I thought I had not planned to come up here this evening, and the first thing I would do is agree with Bob Pugh about something. But, Bob, it is about the people. Absolutely. And so a couple things. First of all, I'd like to recognize the couple of tables here that I have shelter executives here with me tonight. Thank you for being here. They lead our company and they do a great job. Secondly, I met tonight Kathy Sappington. A.D. Sappington was the president of our company from 1964 through 1979. And I've not had the opportunity to meet Kathy before. So Kathy, thank you for being here. And yes, thank you. So when her father's picture came up during the video, she was like, oh, there he is. And I turned around and I could see the resemblance, absolutely. So thank you. It was a pleasure to meet you and have you here with us. So we have our Service Awards banquet coming up Monday night. And I looked at the schedule today. We will be honoring 2 people who have been agents with our company for 60 years, and 3 people who have been agents with our company for 50 years. So, and that is, it's not usual to have 5 of them at once, but usually every time we do our service awards, and we just did one recently for the one that got canceled last year, so we had a couple of 50 years. But it tells you about the people in our company. It's incredible. And so also, David, so that you know, when Ann Covington resigned and retired from the Missouri Supreme Court, she was the first woman to serve on the shelter board of directors. And so, Ann, thank you for your service. So Michelle mentioned in her remarks that people love Columbia. Shelter loves Columbia, and I think you saw that in the film in terms of the support that we give. This year, as a part of our 75th anniversary celebration, we gave each of our employees 8 hours of volunteer leave to go out into the community and to serve. And one of those things that we're doing this year as part of our 75th anniversary is building a habitat house, so that's just one opportunity for them. So we are celebrating our 75th anniversary. And you know, some people talk about having a birthday month. Well, we've had an anniversary year, and we have celebrated a lot despite the efforts of the pandemic to keep us from doing that. We've done a lot of fun things this year, and those are coming to a close as we come to the end of the year. But one thing I did want to mention to you all this evening as part of our community, we're doing something a little bit different. Many of you have probably seen our holiday tree that we put up by the fountain. And this year, the date for that is Thursday, December 2nd, but we are adding something special this year. So we will have what's called the Garden of Lights. So many of you, I hope, have enjoyed shelter gardens over the years. It's one of the things that I think many people most love about the campus at Shelter. And so our grounds crew, if you can imagine, all the wonderful things they do all summer long, have been challenged to come up with a beautiful winter wonderland in our garden. And so our community will be offered the opportunity from December 2nd through sometime after Christmas to come out in the evening and go through the gardens. So please join us for that. So on behalf of all of our agents and all of our employees throughout the country, thank you so much for this honor. We so appreciate it.
President and CEO of Shelter Insurance, Randa Rollins. We've got some unfinished business for Sarah to take care of, so Bank Executive and Chief Auctioneer, Sarah Lubbert, it's to you again.
Last time you're going to see me, I promise. If you get out your lovely magazine that was under there and you turn to page 8, you're going to see the only 2 live auction items we have tonight. We have a long program, we know that. We're going to get you out of here timely, but we do have 2 live auction items. All the details there, which will keep me from talking. And we're doing this in reverse order because I like to mess with you. So we are going to start with the dinner with Drinkwitz. I've heard he's quite the recruiter these days, and with the job market, we can probably all benefit from picking his mind on how he's getting some great talent in. So with that, it's a special evening with Coach Drinkwitz and his wife. You'll see that it's a catered dinner, which is going to be lovely. There is wine provided by Macadoodles, so we appreciate that, as well as a complimentary pianist who's going to be playing on the historic blind Boone piano. So it's going to be quite the evening. Dinner can be scheduled when mutually agreeable. You see the dates there. So we're going to get started. This will be an auction, so raise your bid paddle high. See me getting excited? So let's start out with this. You can see it's 6 couples. That's 12 people. I'll give you all a moment to do some math in your head for the value of this. Let's start out at $500. Who wants to give me $500 for dinner with Coach and his wife? 6 couples, 12 people, lovely meal and wine. $500. Thank you so much, $500. Who wants to give me $600? $600. Coach? Ooh, there's $600. I feel a bidding war. How about $700? 12 couples, food and wine, and an evening with the arts. $700. All you, Dave.
How about a hand for Sarah Lubbert, please, and what she has done tonight to raise money for the cause. I happen to know that Karen Miller lives in a really, really good neighborhood. We're going to have our last 2 honorees, and I'd like for you to watch the screens again, please, as we bring you the introduction to 2021 Hall of Famer, the late Wina Faye Tapp Albert.
Nobody realized the importance of the local history besides Blind Boone. And the people that do know it, they don't know how to get it out there. And so it's important that I keep fighting it to make sure that there's some people, when I'm gone, can keep the heat on. That can make sure that things happen.
Organizer, activist, advocate, historian. Wina Faye Tapp Albert was a force. She left her mark on the community she loved through thousands of interactions with individuals who respected her, loved her, and looked up to her.
She knew everyone. Everyone loved her. She smiled everywhere she went. I guess she said that's your best asset, is your smile. It was inviting and let people know that they could be comfortable with her and that she cared.
How important family was, and making sure that everyone stayed close and everyone was committed to being close and to spending time with each other. And she was always a model for that, a model of what it looked like to be a role model.
Family was very important to her. And another thing that stands out to me is just remembering respect. She was always big on respect. Just for an example, if we walked in the house, we spoke to everybody.
A native Colombian, she was born in 1944 and attended Douglas School. When she was still a teenager, she helped organize a sit-in at a local segregated diner. Though a single mother at a young age, she completed her bachelor's degree at Stevens College and a master's degree in community development at the University of Missouri. Faye, as her friends and family called her, worked for the Columbia Parks and Recreation Department for 30 years. But that was only one role she inhabited in those 3 decades of service to the community. During her many years at the Parks and Recreation Department, she developed and advocated for many programs, including the Career Awareness Related Experience. She also spent years studying local Black history. She did this specifically because she was so disappointed that the Black youth knew so little about their history. Faye introduced hundreds of young people to the stories and achievements of Anna Fisher, Henry Kirkland, Tom Bass, Ruth Wiggins, John Lang Sr., and more.
She grew up in a town where basically very little information about the contributions of African Americans were even acknowledged. And we're sitting in the Blind Boone home, and she said, you know, the only Black person we know anything about in this town is Blind Boone. Her creative endeavor was to try and do some documentation of the Black community from post-Civil War era as far into the new century as she could.
Her work created a collection that included 150 hours of videotaped interviews and masses of documents. Faye also created and hosted the radio program Straight Talk on KOPN, which ran for more than 20 years. The volunteer-driven public service program sought to discuss and sort out issues that were important to the community. That was an extraordinary type of community service in itself. Faye was recognized by the Missouri House of Representatives in 2004 for her many years of service. Her service and leadership positions included being a founding member of the John William Blind Boone Heritage Foundation, co-director of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Association and the Frederick Douglass Coalition. She was also a member of the Boone County Judicial and Law Enforcement Task Force and helped to create Silver and Gold, a group of Douglass High School alumni that met weekly to discuss topics important to the community. But perhaps more important than all the titles and achievements was Faye's commitment to the youth and their future. Wina Faye Tapp Alpert was a pillar of the Black community in Columbia and was recognized by all Columbians as a passionate, determined, and tenacious public servant. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome into the Boone County Hall of Fame, Wina Faye Tapp Alpert.
I've only been in this wheelchair a year, and I'm going to walk again. They don't know, but I am. I'm on dialysis, and I've developed this rare disease. The paper says fatal. Life is so short, and you know it. So I hope I make it. If I don't, I'll tell them I was trying.
Let me do the introduction, if I may, please. And that was Wina Faye there at the end, and we also heard her, so I really appreciate the opportunity to hear her voice, and also to welcome her granddaughter, who we saw in the video, and her name is Markeisha Young, and it's good to have a young person up here tonight. Congratulations.
I am both honored and humbled to stand here before you today to accept such a prestigious award on behalf of my grandmother, Wina Faye Albert Tapp. For those of you who didn't have the pleasure of knowing her, I'm gonna do my best to tell you from who she was from my perspective. My grandmother was the oldest of 11. She was a mother, an aunt, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, a cousin, and a friend to anyone she knew. As you saw from the video, her relationships and responsibilities didn't end there. Next to family, building a strong community was extremely important to her, and she made it her life mission to do so. For as long as I can remember, to me, she was always, and kinda still is, a celebrity. And to this day, even still, when asked who my grandmother was, I stumble over my words because it's just so hard to capture in words who she was and give it justice. From my perspective, she was
beginning in the
everything. She
early
was
1920s.
the backbone to our family and the backbone to the community. I grew up in awe watching her be such a huge part of Parks and Rec, through the programs for young people that she had, like the STAR program that highlighted African American history, the CARE program that empowered teens through work, Midnight Hoops that gave teens a positive place to be instead of being up to no good, in her words. She had programs like computer class and art class and ceramic class.
She hosted Easter egg hunts in Operation Sleigh Drive. She had her own radio station. She led task force and much, much more. My grandmother was a jokester, a confidant, and overall just a good person with an infectious personality. As a little girl, she would ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I would tell her, well, I want to be exactly like you. And she would say, don't be like me. I don't make any money. Do something like be a lawyer or a doctor. But for me, everything about her was already rich. So I leave you with this quote by Maya Angelou. You can only become truly accomplished at something you love. Don't make money your goal. Instead, pursue the things you love doing, and then do them so well that people can't take their eyes off of you. Grandma, I think it's safe to say you did just that. You are such an inspiration to all of us. And for those of you who didn't have the pleasure of knowing her, I hope tonight she became an inspiration for you too.
We're going to honor our final honoree tonight, and you'll be introduced to him right now through the video. Our last honor of the evening goes to the late Dr. Hugh E. Stevenson, Jr.
Beginning in the early 1920s and through the post-World War II years, a debate was happening behind the scenes in Missouri's political and medical circles. Where should a new, publicly funded four-year medical school be located, and was it worthwhile? It's doubtful anybody could have predicted the former Eagle Scout and 1939 valedictorian of Columbia's Hickman High School, a young resident at New York University's Bellevue Hospital in New York City, would have an instrumental and lasting impact on not only where a future medical school would be located, but that it would be built at all. In the lobby of Bellevue Hospital in 1951, Hugh Stevenson Jr. would jam nickels into a payphone at every opportunity, day and night. His phone calls went to nearly every member of the Missouri State Legislature and as many newspaper editors as he could track down. His purpose was to convince them all the University of Missouri was the only logical location. He twice made the long train ride home to testify in front of Missouri legislators. He wrote hundreds of letters to anyone he thought could help, and he visited 58 medical schools and 160 medical centers to study how they operated. He spent hours trying to convince anyone who would listen that a four-year medical school at Mizzou would help reduce the critical shortage of doctors in rural Missouri. And except for being a native Columbian and a 1943 Mizzou graduate, he had no skin in the game. He was passionately pursuing a calling.
I doubt very much if we would have the medical school here if it were not Dr. Stevenson, because he played such a critical role in not only placing the medical school in Columbia, but the way we developed as a medical school.
Finally, a bill was passed and signed by the governor in May of 1952. It appropriated $6 million for a medical school and a hospital. Construction soon began at the southern edge of Columbia. The School of Medicine formally launched its four-year program in 1955. In 1950, and while still a resident at Bellevue in New York, Stevenson developed what is believed to be the first mobile cardiac resuscitation unit, the crash cart. The unit made it possible to have on hand all necessary equipment to avoid irreversible brain damage that can occur in the first 4 minutes after cardiac arrest. And in 1951, he established the first course in cardiac resuscitation. In 1953, the University of Missouri called him home to the new school, and by 1956, he became the first chief of surgery at the new hospital and the first professor and chair of the Department of Surgery. At the time he was appointed, and at age 35, he was the youngest in the nation in both positions. Stevenson grew up 2 blocks from Mizzou, and after receiving 2 undergraduate degrees from the university, he completed his medical degree at Washington University. Stevenson was a pioneer in open heart surgery and led the team that conducted the first such operation in Missouri in 1958.
As chief of staff, he really made some big changes in the way we provide patient care. He was the first chair of surgery. He was the first person to do open heart surgery outside of St. Louis and Kansas City. He was chief of staff, member of the board of curators, dean of the medical school. He did really anything that the school needed to develop where it is today. While he was doing that, if you met him in the hall, he was the same kind, thoughtful, really humble man that you would ever meet. You know, his personality was that of a very a real gentleman. I think if you were to define him when you met him best, you would never realize he was an excellent surgeon, that he was such an important part of our university. He was a true gentleman, very thoughtful, very humble, never promoted himself, often wouldn't even admit when you ask him things that he had done.
Stevenson authored what's considered a classic textbook in the medical establishment, Cardiac Arrest and Resuscitation. The University of Missouri awarded Dr. Stevenson with the Citation of Merit Award in 1973 and the University Alumni Association Distinguished Faculty Award in 1974. Dr. Stevenson was a lifelong football fan and a pigskin scholar with a love for the dropkick. His affection and fascination with the dropkick led to years of enjoyment in practicing after work on Faurot Field. But not for a leg injury, he might have made one of Don Faurot's early teams. He invented a shoe especially for drop kickers and wrote the definitive book on the drop kick in 1981, The Kicks That Count. The book led to a meeting with President Ronald Reagan in 1982, which was a thrill for Stevenson, a lifelong Republican. Stevenson is also widely known for writing an 1,100-page history of medicine and the University of Missouri. Published in 1999, he titled it Esculapius Was a Mizzou Tiger, an illustrated history of medicine at Old Mizzou. Dr. Stevenson retired in 1994 to spend more time with his wife Sally, his daughter Ann and her husband Alex, and son Ted, as well as his grandchildren. In 1996, he was appointed to the Board of Curators for the university, the first former faculty member to become a curator. He was later appointed president of the Board of Curators in late 1999. It was also in 1996 that Stevenson was presented the Freeman Foundation Quality in Medicine Award by former British Prime Minister Lady Margaret Thatcher. In 2008, Dr. and Mrs. Stevenson endowed the School of Medicine with a $2 million donation, the largest gift the school had ever received. The donation brought about the Hugh E. and Sarah D. Stevenson Deanship. It's hard to imagine how different things might be at the University of Missouri without the extraordinary work of Hugh Stevenson. Would there be a medical school in Columbia? Would there be the new Next-Gen Precision Health Institute without his work and influence over 6 decades? Dr. Stevenson would certainly be proud of the University of Missouri Medical School today. It boasts 7,200 alumni worldwide, with nearly 4,500 of them practicing in Missouri. More Missouri physicians receive their training from MU than any other medical school. No one has had a more lasting impact on medical education at the University of Missouri over 170 years than its biggest champion, the innovator, education crusader, author, professor, surgeon, and dropkick specialist, Hugh Stevenson. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome into the Boone County Hall of Fame, Dr. Hugh E. Stevenson, Jr.
And we ask that you welcome back to Columbia Dr. Stevenson's daughter, Ann Stevenson Cameron, and Hugh Ted Stevenson III. Congratulations. Welcome.
Our father taught us early on that two wrongs don't make a right. But he also told us that two rights did make an airplane. I'm sorry, that was super cheesy, but if Dad were here tonight, he would undoubtedly open with a corny joke. And he would express great gratitude to everyone in the room. Dad always deflected attention. Ted and I are so pleased to be here tonight, honoring a few of Boone County's treasures. Dad would feel extremely humbled to be part of the Historical Society's Hall of Fame, and I'm certain that he's grinning ear to ear with the trademark smile that those of you who knew him remember. He would have thoroughly enjoyed tonight's video and all the pictures. Dad always carried a camera and took thousands of photos. It was before the iPhone was a thing and you could take 20, 30 of the same pose. So we have file cabinets worth of film and negatives at our house. Documenting history was very important to Dad, and he did that in everything. He clipped thousands of newspaper articles and held on to magazines and anything he felt especially noteworthy. Dad dedicated his 90 years to serving this community. His talent and experiences gave him opportunities to go elsewhere, but Dad made a decision early on to commit to the health and well-being of people in mid-Missouri. It's impossible to believe that he's been gone for 9.5 years, because not a day goes by that we aren't reminded of his beautiful heart and mind. Growing old and dying is the pits, but thankfully, organizations such as the Boone County Historical Society breathe life into history every day. Thank you.
I just thank everybody for being here and thank the administration, and I'm sure he would be appreciative of the award, and drive safely, and thanks for such a nice night. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you what, I talked about chills at the first of the night. I get chills hearing about all 6 of our honorees this evening. What a slices of history that we've been able to enjoy tonight. Please, one more round of applause for all of our honorees. I believe that the Historical Society has the room rented for a little bit longer because we're ahead of time. And if I don't hear any dissent from the crowd, we will adjourn and say thank you so much for supporting tonight's gala and the history that we have celebrated through the new members of the Boone County Hall of Fame. Have a great evening.